Hello and welcome to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and this is the show where we talk about level design while playing cool maps. Doing a little bit of catch up here. This map is called In Medias Res. It is by Ihonnyboy or Ihonnyboy. I probably completely butchered your name. Again, I apologise. It's just kind of par for the course these days. This was released on the 5th of November last year. And it's an interesting little map actually. It does a lot of things really nicely. It looks nice in almost all the areas. And aside from a couple of little niggles, mostly relating to things like level feels very cramped in a lot of areas. It can feel a little bit boxy, but aside from that it's a really fun release with some cool stuff in it. So you can see here, you start here and you're kind of boxed in almost immediately. And the only way to progress through this area is to actually jump down onto the train as it passes underneath you onto the bridge that you're seeing in front of you now. Now this is quite a tough thing to get right. If there's any kind of hints in the level that you can get somewhere else without using the train, then I think players would really go for that. This is something I kind of struggled with on my first playthrough of the level. I was standing right about here actually kind of pondering, should I drop down onto that train or is it just going to kill me? And I wasn't too sure what would actually happen, but it was just a case of a process of elimination really. Well, there's nowhere else to go, so I may as well give it a try and see what happens. And it did kind of make sense, as there was a little gap on the bridge ahead where you could jump up if you were on top of the train. I like the supply crate hidden behind the barricaded door here. If I'd saved the explosive at the very beginning, instead of using it on one of those combine metro cops, you'd be able to use the explosive there to break down the wooden bars and then open the door and grab that supply crate. So I really like that. It's kind of giving the player limited resources and then saying do what you will with it, but there's going to be consequences if you use it on the wrong thing, which I quite like. The thing I really like about this release is that there's a lot of scripting happening in terms of introducing enemies or threats, which I feel like a lot of maps recently have been lacking. There's also a lot of really interesting combinations going on in this map, which is one of Half-Life 2's real big strengths when it comes to gameplay. Is you combine one element with another and it happens in some very interesting ways. So for instance here, we had the combine shooting the explosive barrels which destroyed the bridge in front of us, which got us into this predicament in the first place. And there's lots of little subtle little scripting moments happening here which just add a little bit of spice to the gameplay, which could be a little bit dull otherwise. So here you've got things like explosives hanging above that you can use to your advantage, which I really like. It turns what would otherwise be a pretty stale encounter into something a little bit more interesting. Another really interesting aspect to this level is that the ammo situation is fairly scarce, which ends up really helping the level later on. We'll get to that, it appears, in the level, because right now we have to kill manhacks. So one of the criticisms I do have about this map is that a lot of the areas feel very boxy, and I don't just mean talking about visuals, although visually they are fairly boxy, but what I'm talking about is like when you compose a level, you can kind of really tell when something's been thought about in a room corridor room kind of way, and this map unfortunately does feel like that a lot. Whereas I think some of the best levels built in such a way where it's hard to kind of specify a particular room or corridor. It all kind of melds together into just an environment, to use an all-encompassing term if you like. It's very easy to spot levels that have been thought about in a kind of very A to B kind of fashion, and this map kind of falls into that trap a little bit, I think. Whereas you look at something like, say, Minerva, a lot of the areas in that game are huge and you can kind of explore all around them. And although the level is extremely linear in Minerva, you never really feel like you're going to room corridor room, because the level is designed in such a way that they are kind of huge areas rather than that very linear progression. So I think that's something the author could work on a little bit here. Saying that though, there is some nice interconnection going on here, as you're seeing. So we just come through that warehouse area and we're back in the train corridor, and this door at the end here is opened up for us. Here's another great example of some Very, very simple scripting that just spices up the map a little bit. It turns what would otherwise be a fairly generic, boring corridor with a couple of crates stacked in the corner into an interesting encounter with some combined metro police. This is something that the map does really, really well. Just little nuggets of scripting like this, which help tell a little bit of a story, i.e. a combined metro cops are shooting explosive barrels trying to kill you, which is cool. And it creates a little bit of interesting gameplay for the player as well. Speaking of which, this room here is another great example of this. So I like how you see the train again here as well. It helps to create that kind of interconnected, immersive feeling in the world. Like, we know there's a train passing through the level somewhere and you keep seeing it at different parts of the map, which I like a lot. Too many releases, the author will show you something important or something iconic and then it will just be completely absent for the rest of the level. I think this map does a good job of reusing the train, even though it's not really used for gameplay here, aside from obviously if it hits you, you die, but just reusing the same asset so the player feels like they're still in the same place. I like it a lot. So here you've got some interesting gameplay involving avoiding the turrets, and you can't just walk up to them and throw them over, you have to find the grenade box at the end here, which is cool. I think this could have been expanded on a lot more. There's a lot more mileage of gameplay you could have got from something like this. Like for instance, instead of having the grenade box on the first floor, you could have moved up to a second floor and have the player go up a ladder and then back across the same room from a different height. Perhaps there's a different arrangement of obstacles up there that they would have to encounter. I mean, there's so many different variations on the gameplay you can do with turrets like that. It's barely worth talking about here because you can just use your imagination. But yeah, I feel like the mechanic could have been used a lot more. Now, I'm not really sure what the origins of this level were. The file name is sp_middle, which makes me think it might have been an entry for a Planet Phillip competition, like Middleville, something like that. But I'm not really sure. I'd have to ask the author. So maybe that's why a lot of these mechanics are just kind of in one room and then he moves on very quickly. Because he was building it in time to enter a competition. So maybe that's why some of the mechanics aren't as fleshed out as they could have been. But that's just complete guesswork. So we've got some nice interesting scripting going on here, which again just turns what could have been a simple sewer segment into some interesting hide and seek gameplay. So the scanners spot you and send in manhacks after you. I like this a lot. It's very rare that you actually see the scanners searching for players with searchlights in Half-Life 2 maps, so it's great to see it here. I really like this section here, there's just lots of stuff to look out for. Now here's a great use of a barnacle. So what a barnacle is really, really good at, getting the player to look up. And then when the player looks up, they spot a supply crate. That's just a great little nugget there to actually get the player to observe the environment and, if they're paying attention, find something which is useful. And again, like I mentioned before, this map's just strewn with little nuggets like this, which are just fantastic. So as we attempt to exit the sewer section here, we've got just a tiny little puzzle area here. And notice that the ladder in this room it's got a very bright texture behind it, so it really pops out when the player spots it. I really like that. And again here, just a simple piece of combination gameplay. You've got a barnacle in the way. What can you do? You can shoot it, or you can use a physics prop to make it grab on, get past it. And we've got a cool new generator mechanic here. So most people know that crank handles fit into generators. What we haven't seen is actually holding the use button on the crank handle to actually power up the generator. Now unfortunately, because players of Half-Life 2 kind of generally know how generators work, it's not that intuitive that you have to hold the button down. Luckily there's some decent sound effects to kind of signify that you're, charging up the generator. So it's fairly well done there. And again here we've got some other simple combination gameplay, so you've got more barnacles and a dangerous obstacle below you. And there's plenty of options here for what you can do. So the grenades is the most obvious choice, but you can also throw physics props into this hole to get them to lift up and then get through that way. I like the fact there's, even if it's just simple stuff like that, it's always, the more choices you can give the player on how to do something, then I think that's to the betterment of the level. And now we get to the final area. This is the most interesting area in the entire map. Certainly the area I enjoyed the most. Got some great presentations, some great little ideas, and although I think the encounter here could have been a lot more challenging, it kind of peters out very, very quickly, which is a shame. But with some tweaking it could have been absolutely fantastic. But as it stands, it's a great little piece of gameplay here. So again, we've got another generator. And as we've just used the crank candle before, we know we have to, okay, I have to find a crank candle for this generator, power it up. So the level takes on an exploratory feel from this point. So we're looking for a crank candle. It's a great way to give the player an objective. There's lots of little pieces of gameplay you can do around here to open up areas or just search for supplies. Lots of cool stuff. Small example, you can break down this pallet and find some gas cans behind it, which will probably be helpful in the upcoming battle. I mean, right now, as a new player playing this level, they wouldn't know they're about to have a battle, but I'm sure you could guess just from the layout of the area and the, you know, the placement of various things. The locked door, and again, breaking the pallet here reveals a small hole in the window, and peering through that will reveal that we can in fact see that the door is blocked, and we can actually dismantle the blockage. Not by using a pistol, because I'm a derp, but a grenade would probably be a lot better for this, yeah. And you can even see the crank handle on the wall there, so that's a great way of showing the player that they have to get in here somehow. So again, we have to crank the crank handle. I really like this mechanic. It's nice. Nice addition to a standard model. And now all the doors which were previously locked have mysteriously all been opened. It's a bit of a gameplay contrivance, but you know, this area is so much fun, like, just willing to let it slide. So zombies start breaking out of the woodwork. Now, considering the amount of firepower you're given in this area, you've got an infinite supply of grenades, you've got explosive barrels all over the place, you've got a magnum. I'm surprised there weren't just more zombies thrown at the player. It's very, very easy to survive this. Just a couple of well-placed grenades. I think having a poison head crab or two thrown in here, or even the poison zombie, which throws head crabs, would have been a really interesting addition. Not overly done, maybe just one that comes in from the back and messes up your routine a little. There's a couple of zombies which do appear on the second floor, which is great to see. But still, overall found this encounter very, very easy. Now, bearing in mind this is my second and third time through the map, so I generally know what's happening and where they're going to come from. But even the first time through the map, it was quite easy to survive here. Back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the video about the ammo being very, very scarce in this map. This is what makes this whole area work. If the player could just sit up the top with like a crap ton of magnum ammo and pistol ammo and just take everything out, it wouldn't be as interesting. You wouldn't have to use all these stuff that the level designer's given you here. So the ammo situation actually makes this whole area function in a really, really cool way, where you're forced to use more than just your gun to solve this problem, which is a brilliant thing to do. I mean, players will always try to solve a problem first with their weapons. It's just absolutely natural. You've got them on you, you're aiming directly at the object, the easiest option. So when you take that decision away and say, well, actually, you don't really have any ammo, so perhaps you should start looking for other things, you actually have to force players to look around and explore the environment for other ways to deal with things. I think that's a really, really strong aspect of good level design. So the dual fast zombie was kind of the final wave here, and again, this is what I mean, it just kind of peters out. I don't really think that dual fast zombies is a fantastic finale, really. I would have liked to have kind of a big swell of zombies and fast zombies, and perhaps another poison head crab as well. But yeah, that's just me. And then we get rewarded with tons of ammo at the end. When all the threats have been taken care of, then we get the supplies. Yeah, typical. So I really, really enjoyed this map. It's got a couple of really great things in it, but I just think the layout was very, very boxy and kind of room corridor room mentality, which would have been nice to have been avoided, but I'll take what I can get. It was a fun map. Alright, more videos coming soon. Enjoy.